Sing Talk. This is Sing Talk Radio.
Is there a link we should be sharing?
Well, welcome to another screaming episode of Sing Talk. Like to thank our amazing guest today. We've got Brian Geller from Ultimate Ears, and we're just going to go with the one-word Hucky from Blue Microphones. Welcome, and of course, welcome Karel. Today is going to be a little different than our other episodes. Karel is actually going to be the host of today's program. Sort of get him started, but Karel's going to take over. This episode is going to be really focused on sort of the singer tech needs within microphones and in-ears and all that sort of stuff. And anywhere else this conversation decides to take itself is fine.
I only have 2 minutes. I got to go. So that's good.
I hope you realize when you say that to Hucky what that truly means.
2 minutes. You realize 2 minutes is really in his dictionary 2 hours. Yeah. Anyway, so I want to turn it over to Karel. I have some questions, but I want you to start this and sort of give us a little background on you to begin with. And then how Blue Microphones and Ultimate Ears has fit up into your world, and then you can sort of bring this together and how these amazing guests are in our place today.
Right on. Well, I'm straddling the line between amazing guest and host here, so I've been maybe not obvious we're just meeting, but I've been touring for about the last 20 years, playing music in clubs for the last, since I was, 15, 16 years old, right? So this is really cool to have both of you here. A lot of people listening to the show, it's all across the experience spectrum. Mm-hmm. There's obviously top-level professionals, and there's a lot of people who were like I was when they're 16 years old saying, I want in-ears. All the people I see on stage have in-ears. What are in-ears? So, and there's some specific questions I have about that, too. Sure. So it's really cool. And one of the things, Ultimate Ears and Blue, I don't know if many people now know are under the same umbrella, which is why the two of you are both here.
Yes. Yeah, we were acquired. Blue Microphones was acquired in August of this past year.
I acquired him.
He acquired us.
Okay.
Yeah,
just so we're clear.
Yeah, and so we were acquired by Logitech, which is our parent company, and so actually I'm also involved in Ultimate Ears now as well, and it's just kind of a fun thing that works really well and just feathers together almost perfectly.
Yeah. And as acquisitions go, everything I've heard from you guys has been, there's nothing to keep off the record because it's been so harmonious, which you never hear, ever hear.
Well, I thought they actually did it just because of the name Blue E. Kind of goes together.
Blue and UE.
All right.
It was a natural merger. No, I think I'll tell you, Logitech is quite a remarkable company. They're extremely involved in the lives of their people. They give back a ton, and it's all about innovation and leading. And even within the corporation, they don't have real heavy titles. Everyone is the head of something. So it's a kind of
Everybody's got a senior VP card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, but it really, as a newcomer to Logitech, and Brian, you can speak more to it, but it's been, and I've been through a couple of these types of acquisitions before.
Were you with Blue from the beginning?
No.
Okay.
No, I started at Blue 7 years ago. The company actually was founded in 1995.
Oh, was it that
officially,
early?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the timing of that is everything, which I want to ask you about, too.
Yeah.
The digital recording.
Yeah.
Well, but so Blue's had a couple of acquisitions over the years, right?
We've been acquired, yeah. So Skipper and Martins, who originally founded the company back in '95, brought on basically investors early on, and then Skipper sold the lion's share of the company to a group, and they had that, I think it was probably 5 or 6 years, and then they sold that off to another equity firm called Riverside Companies, who owned us for the last 5.5-ish years, and then
were they're just an equity?
Yeah, they were equity partner. They're the kind of guys that buy companies, help them grow, reach the next level, and then sell them off.
Right.
And I'll tell you, we're all thrilled to find a home in a company that is much more focused on long-term vision and again, folding in what special things we bring to the table, folding that into the realm of what is Logitech, and vice versa. It's really, really fun. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, those guys have done, really well doing the grow it, sell it, grow it, sell it, grow it, sell it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
and obviously we have, even now that they're sister companies, I guess you'd say, they're still at literally different ends of the spectrum. One, sound produced, one reproducing. So, well, we want to hit both companies, but can we just focus in on Blue just for a second? Because it's
Sure.
fresh off the top of my
Sorry,
head.
I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
You brought
Let's
a
go
call
get the
later.
break.
Yeah.
Call me up.
Well, one of the things is that when you say you were founded in 1995, if my understanding is correct, Blue was started because digital recording was coming into its own persona. However, all the converters and everything were so harsh and tinny that was there not an intentional coloring of the microphone to sort of offset the coloration?
Yeah,
And then,
although I don't know if they describe it as coloring, but it is a musical color. So I'll put it this way. So prior to founding, Skipper and Martin spent a lot of time. In fact, it was kind of a business for them that they grabbed old, I'll say, Eastern European high-end microphones, modded them, made them consistent, and then resold them into the industry. Martin's from Latvia, which not many people know, but Blue is actually an acronym. It's Baltic Latvian Universal Electronics.
Really?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't
Wow.
know that.
Yeah. That's probably. I think
I didn't even know that.
that's Skipper's creativity there, and but anyway, so they.
So
yeah.
while we're on that subject,
Sure.
all of the microphone names are Yetis or Snowballs or something to do with snow and abominable snowman. Like where,
or, well, I think that's a flavor. That's a classification, right? Don't you break down into food groups? Because then there's the bluebird, the hummingbird, too. So I've always thought it was in... This is
You thought it
Thank
was
you for
birds.
asking that. I thought it was maybe kind of like... There are different food groups. We've got some animals. We've got some...
Yeah, you
Is
got
that what it
kiwi.
was?
You got.
oh, right.
So, yeah, please tell us.
I
I
don't.
just thought it sounded cool.
does sound
and I
cool.
think you're most. I think you're most correct. Yeah. No. I mean, in all seriousness, I think that. Look, there are license plate companies, as we call them. Where you have the 4025X and you don't really know what the heck that means. And then you have companies that have each product has a personality, like Yeti. I mean, Yeti is a great personality product, which is what we're speaking into now, and it just represents something iconic. Now, is that an abominable snowman? No.
Is
but
there a
it's-
theme, though? What's the theme?
No, I don't think. I mean, honestly, I don't think there's. Snowball was the first USB microphone we made, and as Skipper tells it, he and Ken, the original designer, were playing in a softball league together. And Skipper, at least it's the way I heard it, Skipper held up a softball and said, "Do you think we could make a mic this size?" And if you actually measured, I think it's the same size as a regulation
Softball.
snowball, just like the Yeti. I mean, if you put your hand around it, which will make noise, but if you put your hand around it, it's the same size as an American Coke or beer can.
Ooh.
So Skipper was really into taking things that in your everyday life and creating things out of them to keep a familiarity. And so the creative process is, I would say, familiar to you. Yeah.
Well, they are super cool looking. I gotta say, they are.
Yeah.
People walk by the podcast room all the time and go, "Those mics look amazing."
Yeah, I'd like to formally submit to your marketing department, if you know anyone who works there,
I
that we
do.
should make a shock mount. You see these little pads under that Dave made? Why don't we have a beer koozie type?
We actually
shock
do
mount?
have a shock mount for these.
But it's not a beer koozie.
No, it is not a beer koozie. Or I always call them cozy. Are they called
okay.
koozies?
I guess depends where you come from.
There's a whole other
Corral doesn't
story
drink
in
enough.
here.
Let's go with cozy.
Okay. But so we started in '95. We went down this road of the first mic that he actually made for production was a partnership with Guitar Center, and as the story was told to me, and I can only repeat it secondhand, but Skipper was basically had migrated from analog recording to digital recording, and he said it was tough. It was
Was he a
hard to
singer,
get-
or-
yeah, he was singer, bass
Okay.
player, songwriter. He did music in a lot in the 80s and early 90s. A lot of stuff that I think would have been on like 94.7 The Wave in those days, and some pop music, and played in a number of different bands. And but he was having trouble getting his voice to pop in a bigger mix. And as you know, when we migrated from analog into the digital realm, essentially what happened is suddenly music gained a whole lot more bottom end and it gained a lot more top end extension. Those 6 or 7 or 8 years in between analog and real decent digital were tough, right? As you said, it was harsh. They were really crispy, lots of highs, not a lot of low end. And so essentially he said to Martins, who was the technical side of the company and the brain, I think, of what we do and how we sound, was, can you make me a mic so essentially so the job is easier to make my voice fit in the mix? And he did, and it was called the Blueberry. And it has this beautiful mid-presence, and it just pops the vocal about, it feels like a dB and a half right out in front of the mix because it just accentuates those frequencies.
What were the frequencies? Do you
Really?
like,
You're going to ask me that?
well, what you know, like 1200?
I would probably guess that, I mean, that mid-presence is probably,
Somewhere through there?
yeah, somewhere in that range, you know.
So I'm wondering how it relates to like
2K
voice, like
down
the,
to, I mean, it's the entire kind of mid-spectrum. I'd have to look at a
1,000
spectrograph to actually
2,000
tell
probably.
you. Yeah.
Because the singer formats run, you know, 25 to 35, but that's a real opera kind of sound. So I'm imagining it's a little lower than that. But
Yeah. And once recording got drastically better, drastically quickly. I remember the Digio 1, which I had, and it was like even I in my inexperience knew it wasn't great. You know, the Nizio 2, then the Mono 2, everyone had TDM, the HD. And within 10 years, it was a completely different world. So how did those enhancements that you made to compensate translate when all of a sudden the ground shifted under them?
Well, I think the initial thought was that not only, Skipper's told me so many stories, it's great. Not only were the old mics fantastic in the old realm, but they were designed for the old realm. And what was required for modern recording, again, with more bottom, more top, all those things, was a new kind of sound. Skipper also believed that a microphone should be a palette of colors to which you paint with versus, you know, we can replicate a Stradivarius precisely. And Skipper's attitude would be, who cares if it doesn't fit in the mix, right? So his thing was to make something really musical that worked for musical recordings, you know, and voice recordings, and not just precisely replicating something over, because sometimes that doesn't literally work, right? You have to do a lot of correction to it.
to make it.
So they designed, if you look through our line, they designed a bunch of different mics. Some are frequency specific. So like in our signature series, you have the Dragonfly, which treats highs really well. It makes the top extremely glamorous, and we use that on drum overheads and sax bezels and things that have a lot of really hard transients or harsh, right? The Blueberry is represents the mids really well. The Mouse is a small little guy, but I'll tell you, it's got that really big bottom. It's not, you know, boomy, but it's super tight. So that's great in front of a kick drum to give you a real like sub bass sound. Or on my voice, I'm a baritone, and I don't need a ton on the bottom, but I need that support, right? And I also have the kind of grittiness in my voice that I let that air, and it has a real nice top end too, but it kind of dips in the middle where my voice really, if I sing hard, that's what usually overwhelms a microphone.
Oh, okay.
So they are EQ'd all very differently, and then of course we have the Bottle, which is our flagship, which is that very big one that you probably have seen, and that has different capsules, and each of those capsules represent
different
those
frequencies.
old mics, but in a much more modern way.
Yeah.
So
are you able to replicate a U87 or a U47 or something with those replaceable?
I would say I wouldn't use I wouldn't use the term replicate. I would say that we get into the stratosphere of the sonic value of that, or the sonic signature.
That's
of those
what
mics.
I mean. Yeah. So
Like a
sort
food,
of
food group again.
I mean, there are companies that literally make their entire career out of replicating a U47.
Totally.
Right? It's like, well, just buy the original.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
if that's what you're looking for.
Uh-huh.
Except that a U87 is and the U47 are pretty
Extraordinarily expensive, but so
Yeah.
are the clones are, you know, usually
Are they really?
$3,500 on up. Yeah.
Well, still, you're talking a third the price, so I guess that's why people do it. But
Well, it's, yeah.
on the Bottle, I mean that's like $1,000, right? And then you can
No, Bottle is $4,000
it's
with one
$4,000.
cap. With the 4 main capsules, it's $6,000.
Oh,
Which is, I mean, you go buy a brand new Telefunken Elam 251, and it's $12,000 for
Totally.
one mic.
yeah.
You buy the Bottle mic locker and you get that sound plus four
Plus the other
others
ones.
in an extraordinary mic that I don't want to drop names, but I mean you can look
Drop
at
names.
everything from Katy Perry to Justin Bieber to Willie Nelson. I've seen Snoop Dogg, and I mean tons of people on the bottle, and
Yep.
and yeah, I mean it's one of the workhorses of the industry.
Right. Which is interesting because Blue has become like so ubiquitous. Like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe I'm wrong, but 5 or 6 years ago I didn't see him as much. Now everywhere I go, I'm seeing him.
Well, I think,
and maybe it's just I'm more aware of
It's the
Blue
USB
line.
revolution, the USB
So-
mic revolution.
well,
has
look, I mean,
changed.
look at what we're on here, right?
Yeah.
What's changed really is that the average citizen has now become a broadcaster, right? And that's really what we've hung our hat on. Our experience, the reason our mics sound so good is because we have this depth of, 25 years essentially in professional recording, making some of the finest instruments on the planet. But we've taken that and put it into mics that go from $50 on up. So, you have an entire gamer group of people that use
Totally.
the Yeti. You have almost,
Every
most of YouTube.
podcaster.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's because they just sound great.
Yep.
They do. They have a great sound to them. And so we're one of
but
the
a
only
great
companies that
sound at a
transcend.
reasonable price, because that's
Yeah.
always been the problem. Is you look at these great mics and holy smokes,
That's
I think
right.
$6,000 for all of that. That's really
Yeah, it's frankly, it is. It's astounding, and
Right.
I think in many ways the professional community has that don't know it have undervalued it because they don't understand it. Every week we do mic tastings at the studio at our headquarters here in Los Angeles, and almost every single person that walks in falls in love with our microphones. And we've had singers from Chicago. I mean, all kinds of different bands and groups. Imagine Dragons. I mean, all these different guys have been in, and they all use my Blue
What,
now.
Yeah,
what
totally.
capsule out of all of the interchangeable ones seems to be the winner? I know it depends on people's voices, but every time I've done mic tastings with the Sony, a couple other companies have the interchangeable capsules, or will do similar, not things, but they have their own. Well, here's our Telefunken, here's our Neumann flavor. I always end up with a Neumann flavor for my personal voice, right? What is always the winner with you? What do you have that you keep? I'm sure you keep track somewhere of your most successful.
Yeah, I
capsules.
have a notebook. It's sealed in a locker.
Okay.
No, look, I mean, honestly, and this is one of the things when you come in, and I'll answer your question directly, but when you come in, we always tell people, don't think about this price-wise. Don't think about it any other way. Find the mic that's right for you. Because as singers, Brian and I are both singers, you're obviously the greatest vocal coach on
Ever.
earth, ever, yeah. And,
sings
I'm signing off on that right there
yeah, I would.
with
No,
a
but-
lot of trepidation.
But quite seriously, I mean, what we want as singers is to find the mic that makes us sound like we think we should sound, right? And I know I've spent a lifetime trying to find that mic. And once you lock onto something, you're like, oh, well, that's it,
That's
right?
it.
And so, but to answer that directly, I mean, the B6, the B8, which is basically the kind of U67, and the CK12 capsule in a 414 sound are probably two of the biggest, most used capsules.
Did you ever track on a 414 with your voice?
Yeah.
Was
I
that
love
one that you were really
414s.
drawn to? Because for me, I really
love a
loved it on my
414.
voice. Yeah. Because of the brighter and any really warm mic for me just warms up what's already there.
It's my album I did in the '90s with our band. I used a 414 on everything because frankly I think Blue had just started then. I'm embarrassed now I have to admit that. No, I'm just kidding. No, look, I love a 414. 414s again, they have a box that they fit in, and in a big mix. And we had a big band with a Hammond B3 and percussions and drums and big bass. You can tuck that voice in.
Right,
The thing that I never felt that I got out of a 414 for my personal voice was that sizzle in the upper registers that really, the texture, right? It felt like a box. It sounds great in the mix. And I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they buy microphones for the way they sound with nothing around them, and they don't think about it in the mix, and it makes a huge
So how do you do a
difference.
good tasting then? I mean, you
We do it two ways. One, you bring a track in, and your track or whatever you want. I've even had people bring an MP3 downloaded, and they sing over it, and we give you all of the raw tracks with no compression, no EQ, no nothing, and you can listen to that in the mix and then dry. And we used to literally go through dry and make you listen to everything, and then we throw it in a mix, and it was all blind, so that no one was ever going.
You didn't know which
that bottle. I want the bottle, right?
Yeah.
And you'd be astounded. I mean, like tons of the girls that would come in thinking they were going to have to spend $6,000, they buy the baby bottle because it just at $3.99 because it just sounds amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing mic, right? So a well-made mic, regardless of price, and by the way, the price is literally it's labor and it's parts, and all of our products are reasonably priced for the amount that's in them and the amount of time. Our more expensive things are all hand built here in California because we make them in such few quantities compared to manufacturing overseas. And then everything essentially under $1,000 is manufactured overseas and in China mainly. It's the exact same components we used to make them with in Latvia when they were made there, and then in the U.S. when we made them. But labor is so much cheaper. We went there, and
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know how you build stuff in California and keep the price down.
well, you don't. That's
Yeah.
why things cost $4,000 and $6,000
Yeah,
because
yeah.
labor is extremely expensive. But all the plating's done here. I mean, everything that is in that thing is done
done in
either
California.
here, except for a handful of things that are still made in Latvia, like transformers and things.
Yeah, as far as price not being indicative necessarily of the quality of the microphone, that's what the SM7 has going for it. I mean, that's probably the second most legendary mic usefulness in history, I would think, right? Outside of a 67 or something.
Yeah,
you see them everywhere. And when that actually, the reason I say that is because I don't know your numbers, but I think the Yeti is, and this is not a commercial either, but I think it's like a modern day classic. This is like the best sounding USB mic
absolutely.
I've ever heard by a long margin.
Yeah.
Is it like, did it just change the sort of dynamic in the company? Like, you've been putting out USB mics and all sorts of cool ones, right? And they're all good. There's the the Raspberry, I have one of those, but this thing sounds.
It's special. Well, remember, it's a 3-capsule array, right? And the way that it's set up, it's not a standard setup.
Where
on
did
the
that
angles.
come? Did that? I don't know.
It's
I don't
Skipper
know any.
and Martin's.
Yeah.
It literally, and you can see there are other companies. There's a brand new gaming mic that just came out that is in the top 10. I won't mention a name, but it just rips off the same thing.
There's
we invented it,
yeah.
this array, and we've had several companies replicate it.
Sure.
And they try and make it, but they don't know what we do to make it sound as good as we do.
Yeah, there's no precedent for that, is there?
No. Look, again, it's that creative thing. Skipper and Martin's, thinking outside the box. Martin's is a genius when it came to designing these things. So he just knew how to get that extra juice out of it. Right?
Oh, are they both Latvians?
No, Skipper's California guy.
Oh, is he?
Bass player, grew up right here in SoCal.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Huh.
Martin's is from Latvia.
So I know you probably have a lot of questions, but I'm just curious, and I'm sort of putting you on the hot seat on this.
It's okay.
I love the 200 and the 300 live mics. I love them. Man, I wish we could get them wireless.
Yeah. Whoa.
I know. I just lit a fire. I know that.
No, look.
They're,
There's
that
a long
200
story behind wireless being wireless. Well, and I'm going to give you a 30-second clip. Wireless bandwidths went from analog to digital by law. The good bandwidths all got sold to the highest bidders, so the big companies got them. Companies like
I know those leases that get renewed, and so it goes
I
up for
couldn't
bid.
begin to tell you. I wish I did.
We
know
should
that.
find that out.
Yeah.
Not that we have the money to do anything about it, but
No, and so I mean, I won't say that we haven't considered it because we have in great detail. 2 companies currently own most of that market, and they are embedded deeply in both the install and touring markets, and it's just a massive undertaking to go after it. And look, they got that, we got this. So we stay where we're good. They keep playing where they're playing, right?
On the tours I'm doing, it's always one of those 2 big companies, and it's always the monitor in front of house guy's relationship with the company that supplies the huge PA. So there's I'm actually looking at trying to maybe sing through my 200s or 300s out on some tours, but I know that there's so many levels of politics, and we already contracted with this company. It's it's definitely a little bit of a runaround.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we make a fine microphone for a handheld microphone, and I think as fine or better than any of them. And I grew up. My first handhelds were 58s, and I think they're great mics, and they're a standard for a reason. You know, they have a little bump at 2K. But when we did the live event last year, we were getting all that first night. It was like, holy crud! And the sound guy came over and go, no, they got a bump at 2K. You know, pull this down, and he was on a kind of a cruddy board, but you know, we ended up taming it, and I think they sounded
great.
Throughout the week. Yeah. So, but I mean, what do you do, right? And
we are also, the unfortunate thing for our summer program is our performances are neither in a box.
Yeah,
there could not be a worse space. I mean, you know, at some point maybe we can hang some diffusers or something, but you can have great
get
mics
into the Kodak Theater.
Wow.
With some industry support.
All right.
Yes. Speaking of.
Well, speaking of live,
now
I mean,
for a word from our sponsor.
Yeah, I know. Well, we're having a lot of words from our sponsor right now. So, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. But this is all awesome. So, actually, what we need is like 2 hours with both of you too, because we're saying a lot of mic model names and a lot of situations that some of the people out there listening are like, oh yeah, good, I'll be wondering about that. And other people are like, well, what's the 67? So there is some basis to this, you know, that maybe we could come back to, but I don't want to also in-ears are like I don't want to miss that. But having said that,
well, this is the pairing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. There's you know, part and parcel, but to the people that I'm speaking of that don't have as much experience, you know, playing live and touring, every one of those people, I can tell you, a set of their own molded in-ears is like their first sports car. Every young singer that I've worked with, and I come across this, I come across this routinely with when I'm talking to younger singers, and they're like, "So what do you think? Should I get some in-ears? Should I get? How do I get?" And exactly,
times have changed. I mean, years ago, when you talked about in-ears, people would order in-ear monitors and they would get them in the flesh color because no one wanted to have it known that they were actually using in-ear monitors. Now it's about colored face plates and types
blinging.
of artwork.
Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
And there's things you guys have done a ton to make it more accessible. Even were they the 16s? I don't remember. There were the temp ones that you've had around for a while that were, you know, a step below the molded ones. So you've done a lot of more entry level in-ears, but for people who are singing in bands, there's still a hurdle that they have to get past. Which one is they need the production to support having in-ears.
Correct.
They have to have your own monitor guide. You have to be carrying the same package every night, or you're going to have a crapshoot.
Well, I think it really starts with education. You know, people, when they come to us, they think they get the whole setup, the whole wireless thing, and don't really know how it works because it still is a relatively new technology. I mean, I can tell you when I saw Dave years ago and my voice was shot. I was singing in a Van Halen tribute band and got hired to join a bigger band and was playing a lot and was blowing out my voice, and it was like, well, you need to sing right and take vocal lessons with guys like Dave Stroud and eat right and in-ear monitors. So I found myself at Ultimate Ears, and I had no idea. All I cared about was something that actually would stay in my ear and would not come out when I was running around and jumping on stage. I could care less at that point and how they sounded or what they looked like. So because I was completely uneducated on the whole process, and once I went down that road and got involved in it, it's a whole nother world. It's once you go into in-ears, especially as a singer, it's very difficult to go back.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So a lot of the artists I've worked with had a hard time transitioning into in-ears. Why is that? I mean, they don't want to go back to, once they've gotten used to it, they don't want to go back to floor. But why is it that some people struggle on that with that process?
I have a thought. I'm going to see what you say first.
I think it's just a whole new method of singing. You are literally hearing so much that you're not used to it. I was here a couple weeks ago with Dave, and he was doing a vocal lesson with my stepdaughter, And that night I went out with my cousin and sang with his band, and it was probably the first show I had done without ears in 10 years. And within 4 songs, my voice was gone. Like, not only could I not hear, but my voice was just shot. But I will tell you, it took a lot getting used to it at first. It took
Because it feels different?
It feels different. I think the big thing for me was the confidence. Like, wow, I can really hear myself, but what's it truly sounding like out in front of the house? You know, and
Which you never know anyway, right? Because even with wedges, you're singing through wedges, and you think it sounds a certain way. You get out in front of the house, and that's not what it sounds
Completely
like.
different. Yeah.
Right, but as you're being a traditional singer, you still have your floor wedge, and you still have that piping back. There's something weird about trusting what's coming in your ear that no one else can hear. I mean, to this day in soundcheck, I'll still clip one of my ears at first because I don't know what's gonna come out in that first note, and then once I sing that first line, okay, the ear goes right back in.
One thing I think is challenging starting off in ears the first time is the monitor engineer is now, like, you're at their complete mercy. And if they're not a good monitor engineer, you know, you used to have your guitar amps, even if your guitar amps were a little bit away from you, you have that air vibrating. Really, now if you're in ears, it's like, well, let's keep the guitar amps off stage because we don't have to. And you know, is your monitor guy actively placing audience mics for crowd feedback, and are they riding them so that when the song's being played, the audience mic comes down? In between songs, they juice them. So if a person's starting out, if they're starting out their first tour with in-ears, odds are they're not starting out with a crew that they've been working with for 10 years at the best gig in the world. So there's going to be a learning curve, probably, honestly, just in the people they can afford to work for them. So, and nowadays every monitor engineer is experienced on in-ears.
A lot of monitor engineers mix in, so it's not so isolated. So it does not just crowd noise, but other things that makes you feel less isolated, or?
Yeah, I think the beauty of it is you can have whatever you like in your mix. And I think that's something that when you first start out, it's just like, okay, I have in-ears, here we go. Then you realize, well, I sing better when I can hear a little bit of bass. And there's something about the timing when I can hear that hi-hat. And then when I discovered that, oh wow, you're saying I can put some reverb and effect on my voice. So I think once you've put the time in and you've done your practice, all of a sudden you find that just magic sound, and you just have to be educated enough to be able to relay your message and exactly what you need in your mix, no matter who's at the board.
Is there, because obviously we want more people to sign up to get in-ears because it's the future. Anyone who gets in this business, they're going to be on ears at some point if their career goes where they want it to go.
It's the future of saving your hearing.
It is. It's amazing. Right? Oh my gosh, I love it so much. You have to be. A lot of people don't maybe pay attention at first. Is then doubly up to the singer to not ride their pack too high.
Oh, that's
because you could.
The other mistake they're making is pulling one ear out.
Right. We talked about that,
and that means this ear is getting just blasted.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
I'm totally guilty of that. Over the years, I don't like the feeling of that, almost like a vacuum. You're in that like space and it's so isolated. You can't feed off of things. So you pull one out to get that feeling, and I had no idea how bad that was.
You'd want ported ones, right?
What happens too when you pull that ear out? So you have the one ear exposed, so you would think that ear would be taking all the damage. It's the other ear
that's getting fed.
It's the ear, because what's happening is this ear is becoming fatigued. Now you're turning up your pack, and the ear that's actually hearing everything fine, and before you know it, you're at these ungodly levels.
Do you have a lot of? I hope we're not jumping too quickly to like this nitty-gritty conversations for whoever's listening, but I just want to get to all these little fun things. But do you have a big sort of audience for the ones with the ports, so you still get external noise coming through?
Oh, you're talking about with an ambient port, so you could hear. Yeah, we do. Typically your guitar players and your singers like to have the ambient. The guitar players are typically the last ones in the band to go to ears, just because of all the complex things going on with their pedals and so forth. I can tell you in our Van Halen band, the guitar player still refuses.
Neither will Eddie Van Halen,
Right.
actually.
Really?
Well, he did last tour
Did
because
he? Okay.
he couldn't bear to hear Dave anymore.
You know, there's
Well,
some,
then he uses
there's some
plugs.
new technologies coming out that I just saw when I was in Frankfurt at the trade show that essentially give you a 3D placement of all the instruments on stage when you're in
Seriously?
monitors.
Right.
So when you turn your head, literally everything turns.
That's
It's amazing.
exactly
Yeah.
that's exactly what's
Wow.
missing. I don't think anybody's put words on that before, but that's what's missing, because you're turning
Yeah.
around and it all feels like this.
Right there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
So, I'm a complete, like, I've had a little experience with in-ears and things like that, but I would say I'm as novice as anybody gets with it. What are the price points and the different qualities in what Ultimate Ear has?
That's a really good question. I mean, when people come in, and it's really similar to when Hucky was talking about mic tasting, because the first thing people want to know is they want to know, okay, well, which band is using this model, and then they gravitate towards drivers, the number of speakers.
That's a good question I was going to
And
have for you, too. And
so
the voodoo there.
Right, there's something about, well, I need to have the in-ear monitors that have the most drivers, because those are obviously the best ones, because they're the most expensive, and it's really not, it's not necessary. I use what's called the UE7 Pro, which is, it's right in the middle of our price range. It retails for $899.
$899, that's it?
$899, right. And our most expensive model, the UE Live, is
$21.99.
$21.99.
Wow, and those are both molded, the 7s too. So the
Correct.
mold, but for people who are listening too, you go to the audiologist separately
Right.
for the mold, and you have a network of people you can send them to. Is that on the
Absolutely.
website, by the way?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
absolutely. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. I know we're kind of jumping around. I'll get back to the different models. But you can go see a traditional audiologist, and they'll take physical impressions. We also have a network of dealers throughout the world that have scanning technology.
That's
Well, they
crazy.
use a digital scanner, and what's great about that is someone in Germany can take a digital scan and just email us the scans, and we could be working on that client's order within a day.
Wow.
So,
So when they do the molds, they get the molds from the audiologist and they send them to you guys, and then you just build, reproduce.
correct. We handcraft and detail every single set of monitors in Orange County down in Irvine, and we roughly make about 55 pairs every day.
Wow.
So there's it's
Fastest turnaround in the industry,
Right.
too.
Is it?
5 days.
Wow.
Wow.
So
You have a warehouse full of like famous ears impressions in a box somewhere.
I actually
It's
have.
like
I actually have Glenn Fry's ear impressions on my
My
desk.
desk.
We just had somebody ping us with Leon Russell's original ears.
Really?
Yeah, they wanted to sell them to us.
Oh, it did.
I thought it was
Little black market
it was
action happening.
interesting, right? I mean, I loved Leon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
totally.
funny. A couple years ago, I went. We have the Eagles as clients, and I went to the show in Vegas, and Glenn and Don were only using one ear. I'm like, So my wife was.
We
with
got to have
me,
a
and I'm like,
conversation.
maybe I should go tell them that they're actually not doing this the right way, and they might consider using 2 ears. And
Yeah.
it's like,
And they would be very open to critique.
my wife's looking at me like, "Are you serious? Really?" I'm like, "No." So
Knocking on the door.
Yeah.
God, I have some advice for you, God.
should I go over really well with Don Henley? Right?
Yeah.
So,
So do the price points, even the low ends, are molded?
yeah, so
everything.
everything's molded. My personal choice is the UE7. Very lot of punch, a lot of growl in that kind of mid range, which kind of fits really well with my voice. And I'll add a little reverb in it and get a little bump about 4K. And that took a few years for me to really find that recipe what worked well for what I was doing. And the funny thing is, it happened we were doing our Van Halen thing. Somebody hired us for a wedding, like they were going to have this. They had the ceremony, and then after the wedding, they were going to do the reception. But they wanted a little bit of Van Halen between the
course.
wedding and the reception.
Who wouldn't?
So we're literally setting up in the middle of this farmland in this barn, and I see this kid that's getting ready to mix us. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a long set. And he put together one of the best mixes I've ever had, and I went right to him afterwards. I'm like, tell me exactly what you did. and wrote it all down, and I've done that ever since.
Wow. On the geeky front, then the 7s, how many drivers are in them? And could you explain a little bit? Like, I think we all know, and it's kind of self-evident. Drivers, speakers, everyone has multiple
Right.
speakers. So
Correct.
usually there's the lowest model would be 3 drivers or just 2.
We actually have we have a model.
Middle,
We
tweeter.
have a model that's a dual driver model, a UE5. So
Like
usually
any home stereo, basically.
Yeah,
in
so
your
it's
ear.
like you have a driver that shares the low and the mid, and then you have one that's the high. So like on the UE7, the ones that I use, you've got a low, a mid, and a high.
Then when you get up to 7 drivers, and I know there's other specs out there, people do crazy stuff. Why would anyone actually need that? And my answer is, if you're honestly getting paid to mix Steely Dan's next record in your hotel room, then you need like 7 or more drivers.
Yeah,
but
you really
who
don't.
who else would need that?
You don't need it. It's just a big. It's a selling point, because there's companies out there that say, I've got 24 drivers in this one ear, but the drivers are like these the size of little ants. So, and then they equal the size of another company that maybe has 4 drivers in each ear. So it's just really a selling point. What it comes down to for Ultimate Ears is the service part of it, the reliability, the craftsmanship, the sound signatures. A lot of these EQs in our models have been around, now 20 years.
So what can we do to get more, I hate to use the disparaging word, baby bands or up-and-coming singers using in-ears if they're not at a production place ready to use it? Is it okay to mention your old companies you've worked for at all? Like when you were at Line 6, you guys had...
I wasn't at Line 6.
You were never at Line 6?
No,
the other
Adam
guys
and
skipped
Kevin
ahead of you?
were.
Oh,
I
okay.
was at M Audio.
Okay. So they jumped ahead, then you leapfrogged them to
Yeah.
Blue, then you brought them over to Blue. Okay. So when our friends were at Line 6, they had I don't know how it really ended up taking off or not. It was a great idea, though. It was the PA system that any band could take. And nowadays you see every front of house guy mixing with what looks like an iPad, some kind of tablet. So Line 6, I don't know if they were the first to do that, but they were certainly ahead in the consumer market to do that.
It was a great thought.
Yeah, so, and we tried one of them out at rehearsal, and it was okay. It was a great thought, though.
Just expensive, yeah.
Right, so what could be done between all of these resources you guys now have, like knocking up the door at Logitech? I don't think they're into pro audio aside from you guys. Maybe there are. But who can make the mixing board that is affordable that the, say, 6-person band
If you can
take
figure that
on
out,
the
you've
road?
got a job.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
honestly,
that's the million. It's the.
We need
it's
an
really,
iPhone. I mean, it needs to be an iPhone, iPad-based app that will send
But look
mini
at-
mixes to one board that you just simply send a stem, front of house.
And what
splits
price
to
point are you
them.
looking for?
Well, honestly, to be realistic, I think for a band or a singer who is serious enough to do this, under $2,000.
So I mean, I've put in the PreSonus digital consoles. They're $1,400, $1,600, something like that. I'll tell you, you can do custom mixes, you can save presets, you can run plugins, you can do all kinds of stuff. You have to do the legwork up. And you can do it on the fly too. But
isn't the Mackie iPad based about that price? What am I missing
know.
as far as what?
Well, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of what do people out there, since I don't
Behringer
know
has
this, what
one
do
as
they
well,
need?
but-
What could
Well,
they do
here's-
to make themselves in-ear ready
Here's
on a club level?
Here's the reality of it. If I'm a guitar player, I've got to have a guitar and I've got to have guitar strings and the drummer and so forth. If I want to be a singer, I don't have to have in-ear monitors. So we're still at an early educational portion of the in-ear monitor industry. It's definitely come a long way to where the younger generations that are coming up are realizing how important it is
Plus,
to...
they're all track bands,
Right.
more so than they've ever been by a huge margin.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, the singer in a competitive sense, the singers nowadays basically all need to have in-ear monitors.
But
in my opinion,
what do you
because-
need for monitor? I mean, look, in the old days when I grew up, you had a wedge off of a stereo outfit board, and you either have just yourself dry and nothing else, or you have the entire mix, right? And that's it. Or you have one send, so you can send snare or something, right? So what do you really need? I mean, we make a little box,
the
called
sound tab.
Sound tap that you literally unplug your wedge, pop it into this box, and then it has a feed, and it comes with an extra long cable. You're tethered to a 15 or 20 foot cable, but so is a guitar player. See, I can move around and have ears and just go right off the floor wedge, but still protect my hearing. I don't need wireless, any of that special apparatus, right? I mean, literally, you don't need anything. If you care about your ears, your long-term hearing, as a guy that sang live for 15 or 20 years with a very loud band, I have hearing loss between 4 and 6K that I literally have zero. It just
Yeah.
gone. And I don't hear watches beeping and that kind of stuff, right? And so I've lost a lot of that detail. And in loud environments, I have to look at people's mouths to see what they're saying. It's old man hearing. But in all seriousness, I mean, if I would have played, and I tried sonic filters, molded stuff, but not that. And I couldn't say it was like singing with your fingers. And all you hear is your cranium, right?
Yeah.
And I wish that I had in-ears back then.
Yeah, that Howard Light stuff.
I got my first ones in 2008, and they make a world of difference. By the way, I use UE11s if you wanted to know.
I was curious.
So what are the price points for all of them?
So they go from anywhere from $4.99 up to
Up to 22.
$21.99.
Yeah.
So it's
Any guitar player, that's
So-
Paul price.
What
Not a
is-
big deal.
So when you say, you have that mix and that sort of thing, when you switch out microphones, if you're going from a 200 to 300, is that
yeah.
changing what your ears feel like?
for me. I mean,
frequent response so similar.
I think it does. I think for me, I'm always using the same mic. So, and my hearing is so bad now that a lot of times I'm just going, okay, as long as you're doing what I'm saying, I won't know until I'm actually singing in the middle of the first song, anyways. So it's just a challenge, I wouldn't be singing today without in-ears, but I also started singing kind of late. I didn't start singing until my 30s. So I was at the point to where it was just in-ear monitors are either going to work for me or I'm pretty much done. That's it. So now it's just makes
You
it
would
so
not
much
have that
easier.
dip if you would have had in-ears back in the day.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's actually another question I had. When I mentioned earlier that young people have asked me, and I know they asked you, Dave, like, I want in-ears. Should I get in-ears? One of the things I've said to them first was, do you have the production to support it? That's just an obvious question because they've never, what do you mean I need this? I need this? A monitor guy? What's that? That sort of question.
But going back to that, some of these real simple, like, again, I'm going to use the Mackie. They've got the iPad mixer, but each person can have their own iPhone and control their own mix. I mean,
Right.
so you can, that's already there.
Okay.
Or am I missing something?
No, but also I don't
no.
think maybe a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah,
I
there's
think
a
it's an
ton of
education.
technology.
It was an intimidating thing for me when I got into
Mm-hmm.
it. I was embarrassed when I first went to Ultimate Ears as a customer,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing anything about it. Like I felt like I really should know more about this, and it took a while to figure it all out.
Yeah, but here's the other thing I've said to young people too, which we've had this other conversation many times about different singers, and I'd be curious to hear your perspective on it. Saying what you just said, wishing you had in-ears. When people say, "I want to have in-ears," I want to have in-ears. A lot of times, my gut reaction is, you should first learn how to sing 500 gigs in a crappy sounding club because you're really learning how to hear your voice. Or do you since you're in the in-ears company, do you maybe not agree with that?
I wouldn't buy into that.
Okay.
I mean, just from my experience, I mean, if I would have had, maybe if I had started singing at a younger age, possibly, but there's no way I would have survived that.
My comments on that also are not about the technology, because I would support the technology. My comments are more around they should do that because they need to experience what it's like to perform in front of a bunch of people who don't give a shit about you at all.
But that doesn't matter.
That has
whether you have
nothing to
ears
do
or
with
Well,
not.
Yeah,
the reasons
But,
I think of
yeah.
it technologically
That's- I
is
just want to
because
clarify why I am.
okay, yeah. But the reasons I think of it on a tech level, maybe if that's the right word, is because like how to sing in a crappy situation and still be in tune is a skill different just from learning how to sing. And if you've always sang in in-ears, I may not be wrong about this. It's just,
Right.
there is no right about this, but it's just if you've always sang in in-ears, what do you do the day the monitor system goes out? Like I've been in crowds where there was 10,000 people and my entire pack went down. It had battery switched out, 2 packs switched out, 3 packs, and then I had breaks coming up where there was no time except for me playing and singing by myself. So how does someone handle that unless they've done club gigs and can take their ears off? You listen to the mains only. You're signaling the drummer, keep time.
I think
and
you
you're
take
pressing the buttons,
you take a deep breath. You try to relax and not overthink it, and you just trust yourself because where you've gotten to ears has brought you to that level where you should be able to sing at that point.
I want to turn it around on you. So you play guitar, right? My first guitar was a complete horrible. It had an inch and a half of play, action.
Over the
I mean, it was
bridge.
terrible.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it was just painful and it sounded like butt. And I was 14. I worked an entire summer nailing roofs for a construction company, and I bought a Yamaha Jumbo, and it was like for me then it was like butter, right? Now, playing a crap gut box did nothing for my
It didn't make you
spirit,
better.
and it didn't make me better. What made me better was when I got a guitar that was fun to play. I played a lot more.
And your technique's better on something like that anyway.
Amen.
When your technique is
Yeah.
where it's that high off the bridge, you're learning bad habits anyway.
Yeah. So, in the realm of singing, I mean, I don't think that it takes. I'll tell you. Totally off, but there. This is where you tell me I talk too much. Our system, our new system that we run our business on has had all these bugs, right? And so it was down one day, and we're like, and he calls me on Monday. He goes, "Man, we haven't taken any orders all weekend because the system's been down." I go, well, why aren't we manually doing it, right? I mean, I grew up in sales when selling was literally a fax machine
Triplicate.
before cell phones, right? I mean, we had a desk phone and a fax machine, and that was it. And you talk to young people now that are coming up, they have no idea what the world's like without technology.
Yeah, Hucky said to me, he goes, what would you do if the internet went down? All of it was just done and down. And I didn't have an answer for him.
I go, you'd print out a form and you'd make a form and you would handwrite an order and go back. How we'd account for that, we'd have to figure that out.
But we wouldn't be
at least
compliant.
we've been making, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's like anything. I think where you come from is look, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Yep.
And I'll say struggle sometimes makes you work a lot harder or value the things that are good to you. You also see a bunch of people now that didn't grow up with struggle that now either don't appreciate the things they have or they do, whatever. So I really value the things.
Percentage-wise, they don't.
Right. But I truly value the things that make me a better performer, that make my job easier and save the few assets that I do have. Because good looks isn't necessarily one of them. No, but seriously, I mean, your voice, right?
Right. I mean, and it comes to, I think people need to realize too is just because you have in-ear monitors does not mean that every show is going to be great. There's plenty of times throughout the year, I do probably 50 gigs a year, and there's plenty of shows to where, okay, all of a sudden the mix that my sound guy did for me is completely gone, and I've got to figure this out. I've got to do this on the run. And then there's times where, all of a sudden I've got a bad frequency and I've got nothing. Or the mic goes down. Now they've got to give me a wireless mic or a wired mic, and I'm like, am I going to do David Lee Roth? It's like, this is so old school,
Can you Roger Daltrey?
So there's always So there's always going to be like little factors, and sometimes you just got to call an audible and just roll with it. And I love sometimes if a show's going really good and I get to the end, sometimes I'll pull both ears out so I can remember what it was like. I think a great promotion for Ultimate Ears would be if we could somehow put together a video with audio of what it looks like for a singer looking out towards the crowd, and with audio with what it sounds like with the ears in, and then what it's like without it.
Totally.
Do we have time for a complete left field question?
Yeah.
You guys have worked for a long time with basically very high level singers, legends coming in and out, right? Think of all the most famous singers in history that you've actually had in private singing or helped out. Is there any sort of overreaching common theme that you've heard through, even if it's like personality, attitude, or anything, charisma? Because if just thinking of some of the names that mentioned tonight and people I know that you've worked with in person, so different. Say one day you're with Stevie Wonder, the next day you're with someone like, rest of his soul, Chris Cornell, right? But these people are coming to you as like, can you help me? Can you help me? And they're completely no defenses, just them, the musician. So were there any anecdotes or common themes that you could
mean between individuals?
No,
or
as an overarching
someone,
people
as
that
how
are
we approach them?
people that are at this level in our sort
A
of
common theme that they go
pantheon
through.
of arts.
I think it's just a bitchin' thing. I mean, I'm not, I've never looked at myself as actually selling anything at Ultimate Ears. I'm just passionate about the product. So getting a phone call from Don Felder or John Oates and wanting my advice on in-ears to this day still blows me away. These are guys in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they want advice on gear, it's mind blowing.
I mean, clearly, I'm the smartest guy in the entire industry, but
For sure.
for sure,
And
dude.
without a doubt in this room. So.
No, it's like we at Blue, especially in the mic tastings. Most of the time, it's the engineer or the producer. It's the technical side representing someone. Sometimes we do get a lot of artists in, but they'll also bring people in to test things, right? And for me, I always tell, like Kevin, I'll go, don't tell me, I don't want to know who this guy is. Just give me a first name. I don't want to, because sometimes it's intimidating. Like, oh yeah, this guy did all the Michael Jackson stuff. He did all, you're like, oh, like, who am I to tell this guy, right? But, and then the passion and the knowledge about what you do and why you do it. And, I trust my ears, right? And I've got pretty decent ears, and
Except for that 4 to 6K.
Exactly.
except for 4 to 6K,
yeah.
but I know how to compensate. Yeah, no, but quite frankly, I mean, look, what we do is I think first, I think it's unique, right? We're in a unique field simply because it's such a small industry, and we make products that most upcoming people wish they could work in a cool industry like
Yeah,
this.
totally.
Right? And I'll tell you, most 99.9% of the people that come in that door are the most humble, wonderful, down-to-earth people you'd ever. None of them are jerk. I mean, I can't remember someone that acted like a jerk. And I'll tell you,
I'll work on that for you.
I will tell you,
Yeah.
the biggest audience at Blue that ever got had by one artist coming in was Weird Al Yankovic.
I believe it.
Weird Al
I
came in,
believe
and
it.
every single
How does
person
Weird
wanted a
Al
picture with him.
always show up in one of our
Yeah.
podcasts? Every podcast,
he's awesome.
somehow or another, his name gets dropped in here.
He's
We better
such
have a Weird
such
Al in here.
A great guy
Yeah, really.
and a glowing reminder.
Super
of-
talented
oh,
guy. I mean,
Crazy.
he does the parodies and all that sort of stuff. But if you just strip away, like, he's really talented.
Really talented.
Anyway.
So what else?
Well, how long are we here for?
Well, we do sort of need to wrap it
Wrap
up.
up.
Yeah. So.
Well, so what does the future hold now that your companies are affiliated? I know there's probably all sorts of like Area 51 type stuff you're not going to tell us.
We're going to
but-
make in-ear microphone monitor mixers.
Obviously, the questions be wireless mics, wireless in-ears. Is that going to happen? Because you're dependent on a third party to have the pack.
I would
right?
say this: as much as you would love that, I would love that.
Right.
How's that? That's about as far as I'm
What do you mean
ever gonna
wireless
go on
in-ear?
something like
Meaning,
that.
if I buy a set of UEs, I'm still dependent on a third party to have
On
a
a
wireless
pack.
pack.
Right.
It's a different company, and it's another large expense.
I see.
That then has to be tied into someone else being dependent on someone else on the tech
Right.
side of it. So
What
if
about-
we got Apple EarPods.
That's what I'm
so-
saying. Can't they do like a pack, wired pack, Bluetooth, and the mic is Bluetooth?
I think you'll see. Look, over the next couple of years, and I'm not hinting in any way. Disclaimer. But look, like at CES this year, we finally saw high speed, high quality, low latency Bluetooth make its first appearance. Right. I can guarantee you that technology as we know it is going to change in the next 4 to 5 years,
Totally.
and a lot of this stuff is going to be much more accessible in everything. Right. So, however that happens, it's going to happen. I can assure you that as a technologically driven company and corporation, I'm sure we will be on the forefront of anything that's available or helping develop it. That's what I can say.
Yeah, if the speed is up on
Good
the
answer.
Bluetooth,
I like it.
Yeah.
that would be.
It's like the
that would
Apple-
be the
the
circumvent
Apple earbuds,
around
yeah.
that would be the workaround the.
Yeah, but I mean, Bluetooth
It's
clearly
a
now
common
is not
question.
high
Yeah.
enough quality, and it's certainly got too much latency in it. Right? So, but I mean, again, for me as a singer who likes to stand in one place and play my mic stand, being tethered is to a long cable. It's no different than being tethered here, right? For a guitar player, I mean, we've talked about a cable. I've seen a cable that actually has it's a guitar cable and a headphone jack all in one cable. So it's just right on your guitar. I mean, again,
Yeah.
I think we've built in this idea that somehow you have to have this elaborate setup to have ears. You don't. Literally. I mean, call me. I'll make you a deal
people
on,
who-
on, a,
yeah.
on, a, on a tap. Yeah.
The people who
Right.
need wireless would be the pop singers, anyone who's dancing and singing, as far as ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do have some questions from some folks that are watching live. Dana Hess What if you have a set of IEs from 2013? Have they changed? My daughter's gotten hers when she was 13. She's now 19 and not used them very much.
Well, her daughter's
ears have-
changed.
her ears have
Then
changed.
I'm sure.
Typically, ears change
Yeah.
every 6 to 7 years.
That's right.
And it was
And
the
someone
mold.
that young
Especially
would,
growing,
would
yeah.
definitely need a whole new set.
And once you're an adult, if I'm not mistaken, maybe you use mold differently now, but I was told that our ears don't change as much as your molds would shrink. So that's why we had to get recast.
It's interesting,
every 2 years.
and I'll tell you, I didn't buy into that, and I had a pair of 18s from about 8 years ago, and then in the last year, all of a sudden, it's like, these just don't fit right anymore, and there wasn't a significant weight loss or weight gain on my part.
Your ears got
so
really thin.
My ears, I don't know, they changed a little bit. So
Our ears and our nose are the two of the three things
Right.
that keep growing in life.
So she does need new ears, unfortunately. Most likely.
she would.
She can try her old. There's no safety problem.
We can always
trying
try
them.
to
Yeah,
do.
did she say they don't fit her well anymore? Is that what she said?
Well, she's just wondering how they've changed.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, if they still fit and they still are comfortable, then they're still going to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no
The-
safety
the-
problem with
The
use of them.
technology in them
technologies.
hasn't changed. I mean, we do have like Live, which is a complete game changer in the realm of quality and what you hear. I mean, we literally have had a handful of people report tears in their eyes when they first listen to them because they've never heard audio
Wow.
that amazing before.
Wow.
You know, and I mean, literally, we had a girl that works for me. We went down and she put ears in, and she was literally, and I won't say her name to embarrass her, but she was crying, and it was like, wow, and she was just so emotionally struck. She'd never heard like, and you think about someone in their 20s. They grew up on like these teeny little crappy ears, and all of a sudden you hear what we grew up with, like stereo. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So Dana's saying, great. So the fit is the only thing that is an issue. They fit her perfectly. So yeah. So the technology is going to change. Greg said, in the case of outgrowing, can they be reworked? They can be remolded, right? Or do they just you have to get new ones? Can you pull them out?
I was going to say, well, we can go ahead. Do you want to answer this?
You go for it.
I was going to. So, in certain cases, if they're small alterations, we can add a little bit and we can subtract a little bit, but it's a very small amount. Now, what feels like really like if they're sore in your ear, the amount we have to take off to make them feel comfortable is microscopic, right? Because our ears are very sensitive inside. But adding can be, we literally kind of layer on the same or similar material.
Maybe like a dentist with a paint it and then UV light it and dry it sort of thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very,
it's
very similar.
It's
yeah.
a tricky process because everybody's ears are completely different. It's not a
Yeah.
real straightforward process. The best thing for, especially if somebody is local in Southern California, is just come see us in Irvine. You can sit with one of our lab guys.
They can remold
and
it.
they can go back and forth.
Reshape
Okay,
it.
they can add a little bit, take off a little bit. Okay, try this out. How's this feel? And they're like, oh, okay.
The hard
would
thing is
Left
if,
ear's good. Let's
if I
keep
tell
working
you,
the right.
Dave, yeah, you go, oh, it's really painful in my ear, or it doesn't fit well. Where in your ear? Most of us don't really have
Right.
a direction in our ear that we understand the feeling. So that's the hardest part, is pinpointing exactly where they're talking.
So someone would just email
That would
customer
be hard.
service off your
Yeah.
website.
Absolutely.
Basically.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Dana, just get in touch with these guys. Which one of the wrap up things I want to know is how can people get in touch with you guys?
We have phone numbers on our websites.
But
Pro-
anything emails directly to you guys or no?
Sure, I don't care. I mean, my email is mhuckler, MHUCKLER, at logitech.com.
Okay.
And you can reach me at B Geller, that's BGELLER, at ultimateears.com.
Okay. So you guys that are asking these questions, you guys know how to track them down and make whatever
Yeah.
changes you need. So
You can also go to pro.ultimateears.com and
just go
there's-
through the
go through that as well.
Yeah,
too.
or and Blue. I mean, you just go to the Blue
Right.
website. There's contact stuff there. We can certainly help you out.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys. I just want to also say a lot of thanks for the sponsorship that not only coming in today and doing all this sort of stuff, but you've provided us these mics for the podcast room. But last year's summer program was just an awesome exposure for all the students who came to Blue. I mean, it was a mad fest rush trying to get to the microphones at the end of camp and buy them. Because it was such a good exposure for them. So thank you guys for coming and doing that.
Great.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So, and for all those listening, July 12th through the 21st, again, we're having the summer intensive. if you're interested, go to vocalizeyou.com. Check out the program. We've just finished the education. We spent the weekend in Big Bear, a little planning retreat with the team, and got all the classes finished. And so we'll be sending the class schedules out starting probably in a couple days. But really, we're spinning things around this year. It's going to be,
Isn't it?
we're doing it an all-campus sing-off. Is one of my favorite things. So everybody joins an a cappella group the final day. We're doing it.
Wow.
Oh my
For
gosh.
anyone that hasn't ever experienced it, I went for my first time last year. It is an unbelievable experience. It really is. I fell in love with wanting to sing again. It really, and the enthusiasm, the littlest kids, I mean, and the talent, the instructors, the writing team that came out, I couldn't believe. These are like the top-notch cats in the industry,
it's
period.
amazing.
But it's also not so non-judgmental for anybody. That's the thing.
Yeah,
That's what's
it is
so
a
great about
nice
it.
little safe
It's just,
bubble.
yeah.
Super
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So check it out if you're interested. Anyway, thank you, Corel, for coming and
course.
hosting us.
Thanks. I'm
I'm
happy.
just not that knowledgeable when it comes to mics and in-ears, and to have you here is like,
I'm happy.
I'm just learning a lot. I mean, honestly, it's been a really good education, especially in the in-ear, because I stopped performing about the time they came out, so my exposure to it has been minimal. But anyway, thanks, guys.
So, David,
and,
at
we'll do
camp, which group will you be leading, the a cappella group?
I don't know. The Baldies.
Okay.
Me and
I want to
Brian,
get you
we're
on.
gonna-
Everyone who works with you wants to get you on stage. You know that, right?
At some point. I'm sure it'll happen. Anyway, thanks you everyone, and we'll be. We've got a couple more episodes coming up here in the next week or so, and I'll announce who those special guests are going to be on the Facebook forum here shortly. So, anyway, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We done? He says before it's